Hey, it's Josh Zell, your cultural Catholic, coming at you with another domestic Friday. It's technically Saturday. Sorry, this is a little bit later than usual. I was an idiot in planning my time today, so I'm going to do a quick few stories today. It's going to try to sandwich, but ultimately, when you think about it, the good sandwich isn't going to really be that good. Um, Quick little note, I could be talking about the healthcare law, but since that is technically dead, there is no real way for it to come back at this point. I'm just going to make a quick note. A lot of things have not changed. A lot of things could change depending on how things go in the next couple of years. We should really be concerned about what could happen with the ACA and so on and so forth. Now, into today's news. On the 19th, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected Trump's bid to include grandparents in the travel ban. Reuters reports that the U.S. Supreme Court rejected on Wednesday a bid by President Donald Trump to include grandparents and other relatives of Americans in his travel ban on people from 6 Muslim countries. But in a partial win for Trump, the court gave the government more leeway to enforce a separate ban on refugees that was included in a March 6th executive order to the president. The order the president said was necessary for national security. A little bit of background on this. The Supreme Court argued that those with a bona fide connection to the United States who are refugees, especially from 6 Muslim countries, could be allowed into the United States. And that was defined as immediate family, mother, father, brother, sister, fiance. And it really, a lot of groups were outraged overall in general, but over the ruling by the Supreme Court, but were doubly outraged by how narrowly it was defined. And there was a ruling in a Hawaii court last week that I reported on, or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember which. And that court ruled that those who were in a much more extended basis, so grandparents, grandchildren, cousins, aunts, uncles, those individuals could be included, as well as individuals who had already been connected to an agreement with a resettlement agency. While the family was good, it includes more people who can come in. That's great. And it really is a much more culturally sensitive because a lot of cultures, especially from where these refugees are coming from, from Southeast Asia and the Middle East, the idea of family is your extended family, not just your immediate family, as we would understand it in the West. So that's good, but it's really bad that another bona fide connection is being ignored. Now, 3 Supreme Court justices, including new Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch, would have given this ban to the president in full, but they are going to hear oral arguments on the constitutionality of the ban on October 10th. Odds are, with the makeup of the Supreme Court, it's not going to go well unless Kennedy, the swing vote, goes with liberal justices. I'm not confident that that will happen. I'm also a little concerned on the possibility of one of the liberal justices, specifically Breyer and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, having to retire due to old age or something, or God forbid, dying. But we will just have to see how this plays out in the next few months. Overall, the travel ban is stupid. It's not going to do anything. The people from those 6 countries did not, or have not, committed any terrorist acts that have caused any damage in this country at all, or at all. So it's just stupid. And if you really wanted to, not that it's a good idea at all, if you really wanted to do something like that, you'd have had Saudi Arabia on the list, but Trump has conflict of interest there in that he has business ties to Saudi Arabia, which may be why he is not including them. All right. On to the next story. Yesterday, Bloomberg reported that after Trump disparaged him, Jeff Sessions will not be stepping down from the Justice Department. Bloomberg reports Attorney General Jeff Sessions said he has no intention of quitting despite President Donald Trump exhortating him over his decision to recuse himself from the probe into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. So a little bit of background. In interview with the New York Times, Donald Trump was angry that Sessions recused himself. He said that if he had known that Sessions would recuse himself, he wouldn't have hired him. He would have picked someone else. Two problems with that. One, that's a stupid reason to not hire someone that they're not going to defend you. That you should hire someone so that they do the job effectively. Two, the Russia thing wasn't a thing yet. So that was really stupid that Trump said. Now, for Trump, he's probably just lashing out because he's angry that things aren't going his way. However, really things are going his way with Sessions because the Bloomberg article did note at the end that while Sessions isn't involved in the Russia investigation, the former prosecutor is actively imposing a law and order agenda on the Justice Department that fulfills his career-long goals and Trump's hardline views. Sessions has issued stricter charging policies for prosecutors, taken a tough stance on nonviolent drug offenses, including marijuana use, and pulled back from inquiries into alleged police mistreatment of minority suspects. So Sessions is doing a lot of things that a good portion of the population would find and do find unacceptable. For instance, by issuing harsher punishments on nonviolent drug offenders, he is going against public opinion on these things, basically because he believed the propaganda that was around in the early 1900s. He's really old. That said, that drugs were bad, especially marijuana. However, studies have proven that in most cases marijuana is not dangerous. Of course, there are caveats like if you're under a certain age while your brain is still developing, it may not be as safe, and there are dependency issues associated with it, but that's just like every other substance that we use. And of course, being harsh on nonviolent drug offenders is stupid because it increases our prison population. We had a massive boom in prison populations in the 80s and 90s with the tough on crime policies, and that's not really good. I mean, a lot of the drug war policies were instilled by Nixon in the 1960s and 70s to really crack down on his opponents. Because, as one of his aides said in the 90s, you can't really criminalize people for being liberal or black. So just criminalize the lifestyle, and you can win the propaganda war, and that's basically what they did. And obviously, Sessions bought into it, and he also is considered to be, if not a racist, a bigot. And his stance on criminal justice is very apparent. I think Trump's just being the baby that he is, and Sessions is doing what he wants. He's just angry that he didn't do everything that he wanted. And finally, New York Times reported today that Sean Spicer resigns as White House press secretary. Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary, resigned Friday after telling President Trump he vehemently disagreed with his appointment of Anthony Scaramucci, a New York financier, as his new communications director. So a few months back, the Trump communications director resigned. They didn't really have anyone. and so he hired a buddy of his to take over. And the guy really has no experience as a communications director. He's more uh, experienced with financial market, with the financial sector of the American economy. So it doesn't really make sense. But he knows Trump and he knows Jared and they're friends, and that's why he was hired. Um, and Sean Spicer had really been falling out of Trump's favor because, as well as Reince Priebus, because Jared Kushner isn't really a fan of them because they're from the Republican Party power structure, and there's been some clashing there, and it's led to a lot of falling out of favor and a lot of conflict within the White House. Of course, this conflict is simply Trump being a bad manager, I think. So that is, it's both good in that we won't have this crazy person leading our press conferences. It's bad because we'll have Sarah Huckabee Sanders running the press conferences now. And Trump has even said that he plans on shuffling in a roster of people. Um, Wallace Sanders will preside at the daily briefing most days. Mr. Trump has told his advisors he is open to rotating new people into the slot. He is said to be especially high on Sebastian Gorka, a blustery foreign policy official who has been accused of having ties to far-right groups in Europe. So that's crazy. A little bit of background on Sebastian Gorka. He's uh, intellectual who has a PhD in global terrorism studies, even though he knows no Arabic, has never been to the Middle East. Um, and the place that he got his PhD is considered a degree mill. So that's fun. The man really doesn't know anything about the Middle East or anything about terrorism. The man is also associated with a Hungarian fascist organization that his father was connected to. Um, so that's another thing to look forward to. But it's just showing a large cluster F in the White House, and this could continue conceivably for the next 3.5 years, simply because Donald Trump is not really a businessman, doesn't know how to manage his way out of a goddamn paper bag. Alright, so sorry about the lateness. This is Joshua Zeller signing off from Cultural Catholic.